Hello, friends and colleagues. Welcome back to the Think Catalyst weekly podcast. My name is Ricardo Ferraris. I'm here with my business partner, Vivek Kuchibotla. We have quite an interesting topic today to talk about. And it relates a lot about our careers in advertising, our career in advertising, and maybe a few experiences here and there that we'll share with you. Vivek, how you doing? How's the weather in Chicago?
The weather is good in Chicago. It's a beautiful day. Chilly, but the sun's out, so that's always good. Can't complain when the sun's out.
Awesome. We like your weather updates. They're good. They're
Yeah.
very good. Hey,
You forgot
yeah,
you forgot to tell our listeners of the secondary benefit of this podcast.
go ahead.
Well, aside from, our thoughts about advertising, this is also a useful companion to get you through traffic.
There you go.
So when you're sitting in traffic, our 30-minute-ish podcasts are the ideal way to get your mind off road rage and all the evil things that you'd like to do to the guy who's tailgating behind you.
And here's something interesting, and maybe have some fun too with it too. We'll have a laugh. We usually have a laugh, and
Absolutely.
that's important. Absolutely
And
right. Yeah, our podcasts run 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. Great for traffic on Spotify. You can hear our podcasts on Spotify. And you can break them up if you don't want to listen to the whole thing in one go. But we hope you enjoy them, find them productive, and again, fun too.
a
By
thought
the
just
way,
came to
Vivek,
me.
pardon me?
A thought just came to me.
Yeah,
So we like to call ourselves TC as in Think Catalyst, but it's also TC as in Traffic Companion.
there you go.
There you go.
So, folks, this is going to be our last podcast for the year for 2023. And we thank you for being listeners, for following us, for sharing us, for liking us. We're also on YouTube, our unique Think Catalyst YouTube channel. And you can also find us through our LinkedIn posts that Vivek and I do often and every week. So thanks again for following us. Let's talk about we'll end this year with this one final podcast before we return in January. But question that's always come up is careers in advertising. How did you guys make out? Was it an interesting career? Can you still build a career in advertising? So we'll talk a little bit about that. Vivek, you want to break the
Yeah.
ice here?
And when you try to compare one career to the other, it's kind of hard. You need to have some criteria that will work across different careers so that you can have a scoring system, as it were. So we came up with 5 different criteria that we're going to apply to advertising, and see where we end up. See where we end up, right? And I think I'll go with the first one. So one of the things you look for in a career is some stability and the opportunity for growth. I mean, the word career implies a long-term commitment. A job is just something you do for a little while, but a career can last 30 years. So the question with advertising, is there sufficient stability and personal growth uh, for a young person today to make a career in advertising? What do you think about that?
My personal experience, stability is very relative these days because your career and your ability to stay in an agency is also dependent on the client that you work on and the contracts that the agency has with that client. Often clients will move for reasons that have nothing to do with performance, but have other reasons behind it, whether it's, something that's, the politics of the company or compliance, etc. But when a client goes away and a contract is no longer there, agencies usually cut staff and don't keep the staff that was working on that account, or don't keep the same amount of staff that was at the agency before. So stability is relative. A lot of it has to do with your ability to be attached to a client and to a contract. Yes, there are higher performers than others. Some people perform better than others, but it's very relative these days, especially as agency contracts long-term AORs have gone away, and now most of it is project based. So much more difficult. That's stability. In terms of growth, there's two paths to an advertising career. One is managing accounts, and the other one is managing organizations. I was lucky I was able to do both. Usually you start managing accounts and you grow, and then eventually you move on to maybe running an organization, whether it's a group of agencies working together on an account, or a market, or a region. A little bit harder, less common, less people do the second approach, which is running organizations. It really depends on the individual. What I find, Vivek, and just one more comment, is people at my age, I mean, my advertising career went until I was 58 2 years ago, and the last 2 years I've been doing Think Catalyst. I've extended it thanks to you and thanks to a lot of the things that we're doing. But careers in advertising are not that long normally. By the time you're 50, if you're still in advertising, you're pretty lucky. There's a lot of rotation, and there's a lot of infusion of young people that come into the business all the time, and it's changed. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's the reality. So if you're thinking about it, it's one of the things you want to consider.
When you and I started out in this business, there were, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 25, 30, or maybe a few more accounts that you could attach yourself to, and you could spend 20 years working on an account. So you could be a P&G guy, or a Kellogg guy, or a Philip Morris guy, or a British American tobacco guy, and you'd have as long as your performance was good enough, you'd have a certain level of stability, and you'd have different career opportunities moving from one brand to the other, from one country to the other, and you could live and move ahead within that world. I think nowadays those big accounts, there's very few of them left. They don't pay as well. They're the opportunities to move from one country to another are fewer and fewer. It's expensive for an agency to have you in another country as an expat. So that's kind of going away. And my take is that, is there stability? I guess so. Less so than other industries, and certainly less so than what it used to be, even in advertising.
Mhm.
So
You've had a couple of careers, not just in
I've had
advertising. You also worked at the client side.
I worked at the client side. I did, and I could have stayed at the client side. That I think that's a much more stable career.
Right.
I just got a little bit bored, I think. So I I ended up in advertising because I decided that I needed a little bit more excitement.
We'll talk about excitement in a few more points here.
I
So,
know, I know.
point number two, criteria number two, prestige. Will you be proud of the profession you're working in, of working in advertising? How will society look at you and admire you? Different points of view, I must say. My dad used to tell my brothers, I have three brothers who are younger than me, goes, Rick works in advertising. He's the bullshitter of the family. So But in the end, it was actually, well, it was a bit of a running joke, but I was the one who spoke more about what I did with my brothers and my family, because it was so varied and because I really liked it. I really got into it. I started at an agency thinking I would work there for a couple of years and then do an MBA, and it turned out that working at that agency was my MBA, and I wanted to stick it out. So I enjoyed it, and
And
everyone that I know has always looked up and said, wow, it's an interesting piece of business. It's an interesting business to be in. So
it's interesting that you should mention your dad's point of view on advertising. When I started my career in marketing, I started in Unilever. My
mhm,
dad was in India, and Unilever in India is like Google, only even more prestigious.
right.
So when I started working in Unilever, my dad was the proudest and happiest man in the world. Um, I'm happy that he passed away before I moved to advertising, because if he had known that I'd left Unilever to go and work in advertising, it would have killed him, literally. So he didn't have a high opinion of advertising either. And that's I've read surveys recently that place the prestige of the advertising professional roughly at a par with used car salesmen and politicians. Those are the two references that are most often mentioned, and not a good thing. Not a good thing.
Politicians being below a car salesman, I would say,
Well, I think they're all fighting for the last place.
for the
So
winning.
this is not a prestigious occupation. Um, look at the old David Ogilvy statement, where he said, and this is a guy who, when he said it, he was probably president of his own agency and wildly successful, and he's reputed to have said, "Please don't tell my mother I work in advertising. She thinks I play the piano in a whorehouse."
Hmm,
So
yes.
that's quite the statement.
For me, well, we can, this will be discussed in other podcasts and when we talk about other things that advertising does, but the ability to create a campaign, a communication, an idea that can significantly and radically move a business, change it, transform it. I think it's such just a powerful thing. And it's also one where you need to have a lot of responsibility to make sure that that happens. So
But just one final thought with the prestige, and I'm
mm,
just thinking about it. There's a lot of professions where it's very difficult to break into the profession. I
mhm,
mean, if you want to be a doctor, you have to have the best grades, and
mhm,
and the length of the career of the training is very long. And by the time you actually become a doctor, I mean, you've been through the ringer. You don't really need to go through that in advertising. So I think the fact that there's no very strict entrance requirements to work in advertising do not help with the prestige aspect.
mhm.
And I think it's very easy to say, yeah, you know what? Anyone can work in advertising. Not anyone can be a brain surgeon, but anyone can be someone at an agency.
Not to be discussed today, but we'll do a topic on this specifically. But there's a lot of TV shows and movies that uh, where advertising is the profession, or where the main character works in advertising, and there's a lot of diverging opinions that come out of that, and quite interesting actually. So we'll do another podcast on Hollywood advertising and Hollywood, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. There's a lot of different shows and movies that were done around that. Let's talk about criteria
Absolutely.
number 3, which is learning and development opportunities. Vivek, you want to comment on that?
There's a lot.
Mhm.
There's a lot. Every account you work on is a different business. So one day you learn about fast food, and the next day you'll be working on software. I mean, it's just and to be able to work on it, you need to have at least a basic understanding of the business, and it's up to you to get up to speed. So you're constantly learning. The other thing that no one can argue with is that with technology, advertising has changed radically over the last 25 years. So before we used to talk about ideas and we never saw a spreadsheet or a dashboard. And nowadays, you hardly ever talk about ideas because you spend all your time staring at dashboards and graphs and having data scientists tell you what the meaning, what the real human implications of numbers on a chart are. But you have to learn. You have to keep up with it because it's constantly changing. So in my opinion, there's a lot of opportunities for learning and development.
I think I saw a brief for a talent search not too long ago for a position in the advertising business, and the analogy that was presented was you have to be like a chameleon. A chameleon has different forms, is able to do different things, is able to adjust quickly and change and fit in and so forth. And that is, it's actually so appropriate for the advertising business because you need to sort of, quickly adapt to different situations. You've got good clients, you've got bad clients, you've got lazy clients, you've got really smart clients. You're dealing with a very diverse group of people inside the agency. You're dealing with creatives, with media, with data people, with production people, with traffickers. You're dealing with digital folks as well. Um, they're all different. They're all doing different things. They're all different personalities. I think it's one of the richness of the business because you're exposed to that. But if you're not receptive to that type of change and opportunity, you'll struggle. It'll be different. Also, what I found is, when different situations would come up, I actually raised my hand and said, I'll do it. Knowing sometimes that I didn't know how to do it, but I would find a way to learn how to do it. So what I also and to that matter, you're never really prepared for your next promotion. But if you show that you're going in that direction, they'll promote you and then you'll settle in and get into that position. That was at least my experience. And I was not the head of my class. I was in the top 50 or the bottom 50. I don't know. I was in the middle. So I'm not sure if it's top 50 or bottom 50, but I was in the top of my class, but I adapted well in this business.
Well, the what you're describing, it not only speaks to learning technical things, but also a lot of soft skills, persuasion, negotiation, salesmanship, which is all very valuable. And one thing uh, that kind of is the bottom line in advertising, if you're someone who is able to get shit done, that's extremely valuable. If you volunteer, if you're the first one um, there when there's trouble and you're able to solve things,
Very valuable.
you're very valuable.
Very
And it's
valuable.
always a different problem to solve. So
Right.
there's always learning involved in it. So in with this criteria, I think advertising would, unlike with prestige and stability, I think in the area of learning and development, advertising does rank very high. That's a good thing.
Did you like your job in advertising?
Um, it depends on which day you ask me, but generally speaking, yes, I did. Yes, I
Okay,
did. Had a
because
lot of fun.
that's criteria number 4, satisfaction, right? Are you enjoying it? Are you having fun? Is it challenging for you? Is it, you know, a lot of people hate their jobs, Vivek. I must tell you, I know more people who hate their jobs than those who love their jobs. And it's sad, actually. But I wouldn't trade this for anything. I mean, I completely enjoyed it. There were total satisfaction in many ways. Also, and especially when a problem would come up, and when I knew that I could possibly be part of a solution, right? And so it was, when a client would call and say, I've got a problem, it was like, okay, this will make the day interesting. Monday mornings was like that, Vivek. I knew that on Monday mornings, I would get 1 or 2 calls from clients because something happened over the weekend, or they got bored over the weekend and they needed to speak out about something. But Monday mornings were always quite an exciting moment of the week because something would always happen that would also define a bit how the rest of the week would go.
Well, in my case, I actually traded a job that was less that was probably more stable. I could have probably made more money on the client side, but I actually and willingly traded it in for a job in advertising
Mm,
where I just had more satisfaction. It was
mhm.
just more fun. There was more variety. And the I found that generally speaking, the discussions that I had in the advertising world were a lot more interesting and enriching than the discussions I had on the client side. Now, I have to say, when I moved from the client to the agency, I thought all of my discussions would be high level, intellectual strategy, creative discussions. And I was unaware of the quantity of shit that I would have to eat along the way. So I have to say that. But after a while, that's part of it comes with the dinner. So you kind of get used to it,
Mhm,
and it's a part of the satisfaction that you get in this job.
mhm.
But yeah, there's never a dull moment.
Yep.
Some people would describe a work week as a sprint to Friday. And I used to have a colleague who, if some bad news came in on Thursday or Friday, he would basically compartmentalize it and say, you know what, I'm going to get angry about this on Monday, but he wouldn't spoil his weekend.
Right.
Um, so yeah, in my opinion, in terms of it being a fun and challenging job, again, I think it would rank very high as compared to other professions.
It kept
Every day I give thanks that I'm not an accountant.
right.
So
It certainly kept me on my toes. It certainly kept me on my toes. Good friend of mine who was a client also one day called, we were talking about professions and our careers and so forth. And he goes, I can't understand how you can put up with clients who are, who threaten to pull the account on you or complain all the time and so forth. And I said, look, it's not that you get used to it, but it comes with the territory, but you also learn how to manage that and deal with that. And you know, there's a lot of different personalities that are involved on both sides. Many clients are insecure. Many clients, want their agency to do different things for them. Really great clients say, surprise and delight me. Show me something that, I would not expect. Those are the best briefs, by the way. So you get a variety of that. And certainly that makes it fun and exciting all the time. And occasionally, the threat that the account will go up to pitch, or you lose a business, you move on.
Lots of highs and lows, lots of adrenaline,
Yeah.
which you're not going to get. And I guess maybe there are other professions I can imagine that stock trading or working in financial derivatives or something like that would have the highs and lows and the adrenaline. Um, but I think advertising ranks very high
Yeah.
in that criteria. Let's talk about the last one.
Mm-hmm.
This one's important. Compensation.
Mm.
Is it well paid? What do you
Mm.
think?
Mm. My experience, initially, no. At the beginning, absolutely, it is not well paid. And there's a little bit of a test to see if you are able to put up with that and uh, get through at least the initial couple of years and are willing to invest in your career. Once you get going, the pay improves. Um, but only if you become managing director, CEO material further up, or maybe a global client leader, will you begin to earn significantly better. Other than that, it's not necessarily the best paid profession. And these days, even more so, because a lot of the AOR contracts that we were used to seeing when you and I were a couple of kiddos starting in this, they're no longer around. A lot of it is project work. It's less stable. It's less consistent. And so agencies can't necessarily afford to have more people better paid than other professions.
I think there's if you compare it to marketing, for example, and assuming you're competent, reasonably good in marketing, you'll see a consistent increase in your compensation over time. I think with advertising, you start out real low. If you're very good, there's a chance that you'll get a huge bump, not a consistent increase,
Yeah.
but a huge bump. But there's also the chance that if you're not a superstar, you'll stay down here for a long time. And compared to other professions, compensation is much more variable and much less predictable,
Right.
I'd say. Much less predictable. Um, so
That said, it's
I,
also a business where a lot of people spin off and go do their independent agency and become entrepreneurs. That's also a chance to a certain degree, Vivek, because not necessarily will you earn very well at the beginning. You may earn very well later or get bought out, etc.
and not
Nothing,
everyone's cut out to be an
an
entrepreneur.
entrepreneur. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Nothing
mean,
like
if you
nothing
want to
like
be,
controlling your own destiny, okay? Which an entrepreneur to a certain degree controls his own future and destiny, but it's really up to them.
for people with an entrepreneurial streak,
Mhm.
nothing like controlling your own destiny. But there's a lot of people who are happy to have a stable job and get paid twice a month and retire with a pension. If that's you, this is not the career for you.
Mhm.
Um, I think if it's kind of a roller coaster profession.
Mhm.
It can go up really quick, it can come down really quick,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to predict where you're going to end up um, at the end of your career. So it's variable. It's complicated, as they'd say.
So what's your advice to the young people? Is there still an opportunity to build a career in advertising?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the right way to describe it. I
Hmm.
think I think you can spend time in advertising. Uh, you can be very successful. You can be I'm not going to say a failure, but you can be not successful.
Hmm.
Um, it's in your hands completely. So again, I'll go back to my roller coaster analogy. If you like roller coasters, then you might want to work in advertising. If you like stability, predictability, and not high levels of stress, then it's probably not the profession for you. And I think it's always been like that, but I think nowadays more so than ever. That would be my verdict.
Look, my advice is if you liked everything, if you thought that everything that we said in the last 30 minutes intrigued you, and it's something that you have thought about, it's actually an interesting career to start your business career. And that's how I approached it. I actually thought either I was going to go to business school or go work for one of the clients that I worked with, and I ended up staying in the business. But there's different ways to approach it. So if you want a little bit of
Here's
thrill, not a bad thing. If you are into cities like New York or Chicago, which are meccas for the ad business, and I would suggest, if you can, to go to one of the meccas and really feel it out, could be interesting. Long term, a little bit harder.
I'm trying to think. I have a selling line, a tagline in mind, and I can't quite remember which of the armed forces used it. But the selling line was, "It's not a job, it's an adventure."
Adventure.
And I think that would apply to a career in advertising. It's not
Right.
a job, it's an adventure.
It is.
Yeah. Was that was the Army, I think.
I think it was the
It's
Army.
not a
Yeah.
job. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a job, it's an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. They used to the armed forces used to do great advertising. Not so much anymore, but
Hey, reflecting overall on this podcast thoughts and theme, I'm very thankful for everything that has happened to me. Good and maybe not so good, but mostly good. I dedicated a lot of time to this and put a lot of effort in. And I think, like with any career, if you're able to do that, I think, you'll find your way in and you'll find your way to be successful. So things to ponder about. And again, quite interesting. Every day is different, never a dull moment, and all kinds of stuff happens. Just like what you and I do every day, pretty much.
not a job, an adventure.
Yeah. So Vivek, it's been a wonderful 2023. Thanks for the partnership. Look forward to continuing that in 2024. These podcasts, we've got great feedback from friends, from colleagues, from people. Thank you for your feedback, for your thoughts and ideas. Uh, Vivek is a lot of the mastermind around developing the various themes that we talk about, and it's been a lot of fun and hopefully
It has.
educational and productive and informative for those people who are interested. We are Think Catalyst. We are a consultancy that helps advertisers look for agencies. We also help agencies build better credential presentations and programs that will strengthen client agency relationships. That's our business. Our combined 60 plus years is at the offering for different programs, and we appreciate the business and we appreciate the opportunity to have served many of you who have contacted us and followed us directly. So thanks again. Some parting words from you, Vivek?
I just wanted to add one word, 2 words to what you were saying. The one word is the subjects we talk about in these podcasts are we try to be a little bit provocative, because I think that's important within this business. We want to say out loud the things that no one wants to actually talk about. So that's one thing. And the other thing is just thank you Ricardo. Thank you, listeners. It's been a fun year. It's been a productive year, and we'll see you next year.
And listen to us when you drive to work or you drive
There
back
you go.
home. There you go.
If nothing else, traffic companion. Remember that, TC.
Have a good one, everyone. We'll be back in 2024. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Take care.
Take care, everyone.